Scientology could be called, well, you could call it a religion of religions.
Hello, and welcome to the Indie Scientology podcast. I'm your host, Andy Knox, the Space Cowboy, and these are closed-door secret briefings about vital information about Scientology and the world that you need to know. Today's briefing is part 3 of my experience with the legal system, my experience with the justice system, my experience with the system that disciplines adults. So if you're new to this series of briefings, it's about a crime I did, which was graffiti, and it doesn't really have anything to do with Scientology. So, I just want to make this, so you might as well, not listen to it if you want to hear Scientology talk. But I want to explain the legal system fully so people know what's going on, because as the police system clamps down more and more with COVID, more and more people will be classified as being criminals. And you need to know how the legal system works, right? The legal system's ridiculous. In the past 100 years, the amount of law, since communism has taken over and socialism has taken over, the amount of laws that have been passed is just astronomical. They were much more freer. We were a lot more freer back in the 90s, and we were heaps more freer back in the 60s, and we were just a lot more freer like back in the 1900s and stuff. We were just really left alone to ourselves, and this whole thing didn't grow up, or like this whole control system and lawyers and rules and police and everything, they've really expanded in size. Anyway, so with my story with the legal system, I'm up to talking about my appeal of the court case. So I'd gotten at the lower court, I'd been, told the community work and other things that was my punishment, and I'd been given a dodgy lawyer. So, and when I mean by dodgy, I mean he was secretly working for the other side, which is completely inappropriate. I explained to you how in the other video, I explained to you how I knew that he was working for the other side, and he hasn't openly admitted it, but he has. It's just so obvious. He said he was involved with Lawyer X and stuff. He came up in the inquiry, his name came up. Anyway, and the police have gone after him and they've shut him down. So they built him up as their little agent, and then now they're doing the opposite, and they've shut him down, they've closed him down, and so they're dirtying his name and dirtying his name and everything. So they're totally coming after him. So it's kind of interesting, because I reckon he must have threatened to go public, or he was going to come up, his name was going to come up in the inquiry, and they had to trash his name so that, I don't know. Anyway, but my conspiracy theory has been totally confirmed, and I know a lawyer who's been totally following the whole thing properly, legally, and he's a trained lawyer, he's been a lawyer for years, and he totally thinks something strange as well with the whole thing. So it's not my conspiracy theory, it's been totally proven. Anyway, so now we're up to the bit where I talk about the appeal. So the appeal, I've gone to the higher court case, and this was probably sometime in 2019, early 2019. Before I mention that, I wanted to say that there's a legal services board, and they basically make sure that lawyers, and I think maybe judges, don't do dodgy things. And of course that legal services board, they make sure there isn't kangaroo courts, but the legal services board itself is corrupt. So that's why we've got kangaroo courts and dodgy things happening. But this Lawyer X chick, this Gobbo thing, was a huge news thing. I've spoken to someone on the inside, and the legal services board knew she was dodgy for years. So they knew she was a police spy. You know what I mean? They knew that this lawyer was screwing over her client and perverting the course of justice, right? The police who were supposed to follow the laws were getting her to do it and paying her to do it. The legal services board, who was supposed to be overseeing court cases and making sure they're ethical, knew that these dodgy court cases were going on and that she was an agent. And this is why there's all this dirty underground stuff going on, but no one talks about it. All you see is suits and smiles and social personalities and public relations. But underneath it, people know all this dodgy shit is actually going on. And these judges and stuff and these legal services they know, oh yeah, that lawyer is secretly working for the cops and blah, 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 blah. Now, that relates to the next thing is that if lawyers can be corrupted, like with the Lawyer X thing and my former lawyer, well, do you think judges can be corrupted? Absolutely. Judges are in the back pocket of different organisations, possibly mafia or other things, and the police, for example, and probably you'll have judges that are secretly CIA judges and judges that are secretly ASIO judges and judges that are secretly I don't know, pro-military. But one of the really important roles in the legal system is when someone's name comes up and they assign the judge for the court case, whoever does that assignment and puts that name to that judge, that role in the courthouse in Melbourne or any courthouses where you are, that role is seriously an important role. Like, not only is it important that people who want to pervert the court system, the justice system, not only do they have to influence the judge, they have to make sure that that court case goes to the right judge. You see what I mean? So if a right-winger, for example, gets in trouble or something like that, whoever's assigning the right judge will of course not give that case to a fellow right-wing judge. And they try and eradicate any right-wing judges all out together. They try not to have them in existence at all. But if there is some that are still remaining, they of course will make sure that that case doesn't go to that judge and that the case will go to this leftist judge. So let's say you're a right-winger and you draw a big dick on like a rainbow flag. So you've got the local government building and they put rainbow flags. They're even putting in Melbourne, they're putting rainbow flags on building sites. It's just so ridiculous. So on the building site, you've got the Australian flag, the Aboriginal flag, the Torres Strait Islander flag, because they've broken our nation up into all these different things. And then they've got the rainbow flag. So they've just smashed patriotism and nationalism out, and they've made it into all these different groups like Aboriginal, Torres Strait, blah, blah, blah. It's part of the social engineering. And they made another one, rainbow flag. And you go past the building site and you're like, oh my God. And that building site probably has a lot of government connections or funding and stuff like that. And that's why they got the rainbow flag. Anyway, let's say you draw a dick on one of those flags or you burn it or something like that. Well, when you come into the court system, there's definitely a good chance that they'll assign you a judge that's a dyke. So if the judge is a lesbian, you'll get the lesbian judge. They'll do that. And or they want to screw you over and they want to make a public spectacle of you. So if they can't get you the dyke judge, because they know the dyke judge will do a bad sentence and probably scream at you in the court case, and they can use those statements in news reports and stuff, they'll give it to a judge that they've got on their payroll, and that judge will just do the same thing. But the judge isn't a lesbian, doesn't even care what the person did, but the judge will do the same thing. So that role in the courthouse of whoever assigns the right judge to the right case, whoever assigns the judges to the cases, it's extremely important. And I'm sure there's a whole chunk of cases where it's just literally like pick a name out of a hat. Like the names come in of the court cases and they just put the files next to the person's name and it just goes by whatever judge isn't busy, right? But when it comes to political stuff and bigger profile stuff, whoever's assigning those folders, they somehow make it go to the right judge. And that would seriously happen. So this is how they pervert the course of justice as well. I was going to say something. So I just wanted to mention that, because what happens is that good lawyers know this. or clever ones basically, they know the personality and the type of sentencing that the judges do. And so if they rock up to the courthouse and they see that day they see the judge that's been assigned the case, they'll come up with some bullshit lie or something like that, like there's some family emergency or something like that, to try and cancel the court case for that day, so then they get reassigned a new judge. And it's called, in the legal system, it's called, like, it's a slang term, but it's called like judge shopping. Judge shopping, and you're basically shopping around for the right judge. But this is what will happen. This is why you'll hear about someone who'll go into court or something like that, and then you'll be like, what happened that day in the courtroom? You'll be like, oh, nothing, just some paperwork thing. We didn't do anything today, and it's just been delayed. And it's like, oh, okay, yeah, it's been delayed, and there's reasons why, because one of the reasons could be because they were judge shopping and stuff. But some of these government lawyers who get paid by the government to look after criminals, they'll do this. So they'll rock up with the criminal, and the criminal's done something, and he's got a long criminal record. He keeps on breaking the law, and every time he gets in trouble with the law, the government pays for his fees, and the lawyer will judge swap. Now, if the lawyer wants to do a shit job for you, the lawyer, because like I said, sometimes the lawyer can be corrupted and can intentionally corrupt your court case and not be working for you. They might know that you've been assigned a really crappy judge, and they might go, no, let's handle it today because we'll get this judge today, and this judge is going to fuck him over. And you don't know that. You don't know that your lawyer's not working for you, and you don't know this tactic of judge shopping, and he's just made sure that you've been secured, that your case has gone to a bad judge that won't give you a good result. You see what I mean? These are the shifty things that go on, judge shopping. It's just so typical. Anyway, now another thing as well is that when you get punished in the legal system is that because a lot of these judges are sociopaths, and they love people to suck up to them and to like follow them, at like their rulers. And the best example I can think of is the Queen out of the Wizard of Oz story. You know, she's screaming and she's like, "Who painted my roses red?" And it's this insane personality that she wants people to slave after and follow her around and worship her. There's a lot of judges that actually have, and lawyers, that sort of have this type of personality. And so when they're coming across somebody who's broken the law or whatever, if the judge has that personality, they actually want the person who's getting into trouble and their lawyer to really suck up to them, and that can help them get a good result as well. So you have to understand the psycho personality of the judge, and you might have to suck up to the judge, right? You know, feed into their egomaniac or whateverness, their egomaniacness, and then you'll get a better result. So that's why they say stuff like "Your Honor," and they bow when they walk in and out of the courtroom and stuff like that. It's all about sucking up their ass, and it's a load of bullcrap. Like, as a judge, I wouldn't care if someone came to me and broke the law. I wouldn't care if they were excessively polite to me or anything like that, because I'm not like a sicko. But some of these judges are sickos, and they really want the criminal to look really poor and upset and sad, and to write a really big apology. And they know that, and this is where they're real sickos, they know the person's lying, but they don't care whether or not the person's actually apologising. They just care that the person's grovelling to them and sucking up to them. And it'll make them feel better to know that the person's lying and to see that the person's putting on this ridiculous act. So let's say the dude's broken the law, he stole a car, and he rocks up in poor, shitty looking clothes, and he looks like he's had a really hard life, and he says that he writes an apology, or he gets his lawyer to say it to the judge, and he says an apology, and he really sucks up to the judge, and the judge knows the dude's lying. He knows that he'll probably break the law again, knows that he's not really sorry for what he did, but the judge loves the fact, because the judge is an egomaniac, it's the personality type of a sociopath. They love the fact that this guy is sucking up to him, and that'll make them feel better. So these are the extra things. So if you're a really good lawyer, I mean, if I got a lawyer and I got assigned one of these judges and I had a client, I would say to the client, okay, we're going to have to really suck up to this judge, because this judge is just a fucking weirdo sociopath and stuff. But they're going to enjoy hearing your sob story about how much you failed and stuff like that, and you got to really suck up to the judge and be excessively polite, and treat them like they're royalty. And the judge you're going to get in the judge's good books, and you'll make the judge feel good that day, and then they might give a better result. But this is the type of crazy behavior you come across in the real world. If the judges if they were nice, reasonable people like me and stuff, then you wouldn't have to do crazy stuff like that. Like, I would be annoyed if somebody lied to me. I would find that kind of offensive. I'd be like, dude, come on, what are you doing this act for and stuff? Like, I don't think you're sorry for this or whatever. But these other judges, they'll be like, yes, because it's a type of personality. You come across these people in their life. They love. I noticed it with someone who I knew, and when he was around the boys, if you know what I mean, he loved it when he was the king of the group. And it's some sort of crazy sick thing, but when he had respect, and when people sucked up to him, and it's just this crazy personality type. I can only think of it as a sociopath, but it's something about them. They like to be worshipped and stuff. And this is why I've heard, I have no idea if this is true, but like the Queen or some form of royalty like to have slaves wipe their ass or whatever, or servants wipe their ass. And a lot of people will be like, oh, that's kind of weird, having someone else wipe their ass. But they really like it, because they're like, look how fucking good I am. I'm getting this guy to lick my ass. You know what I mean? Like I'm royalty. I have so much power. Look at this servant lick my ass. Yes, and they feel good about it. It makes them feel happy. Also, some people who are this type of personality, when it comes to sexual things, they're into like crazy kinky like sex. Like, it might be like shit sex or other stuff, and they don't actually really get pleasure out of it, out of the sex side of it. They get pleasure out of degrading the other person and exerting their control and authority over the other person. So they might tie the person up, this type of personality type. You won't see the judge do this in the courtroom, but in their private life, I wouldn't be surprised if they've done some of these kinky things, but they might, in their sex life or whatever, go and tie up the person on the ground and then lay a shit on their stomach, and then like they get off to that because it's like they're exerting their power and control over the person, and they're degrading and humiliating the person. They're like, yeah, that's right. And it's just like, they're just total weirdos. They're degenerate, weirdo sociopaths, but this is part of their personality. So when you come across them in life, you might find you have to do little things like suck up to them or something like that, or in the courtroom, if you've got them as a judge, you might have to suck up to them. But these things are difficult because you have to learn the personality of the judge and stuff. I'm not making this stuff up. This is real stuff. You know what I mean? This is serious. Or you can just tell when the judge is a chilled, sort of cool, normal sort of guy that isn't some weird sex pervert that likes to degrade people sexually and stuff on the weekends. So that person, you can just be frank with them and honest, and you don't have to put on those sorts of things. But other ones, it's like, you know, if you rock up to the courtroom in a nice suit, looking clean shaven with a nice watch on, and then you don't grovel to the judge like the judge is royalty, and the judge is a sociopath, they're going to be really pissed off with you. That'll piss them off, because they'll be like, who the fuck does this guy think he is? You know what I mean? Because the judge, this sociopathic personality, if you have a judge like that, they want everyone in the courtroom being these degraded scumbag people looking with dirt in their face and groveling like slaves, and then they're like, yes, oh, I feel so good, I'm just the king of this place. It's really weird psychology. These people are just weirdos. But they're out there, and the reason why I'm mentioning it is because you got higher proportions of people in them in the legal system. They're up there in the legal system and in judges. You come across sociopaths in more frequency than if you went to like a building site and met up with a bunch of builders and a top builder. You just don't get the sort of sociopaths you get. And that's why they like being the judge, because it's respect and it's power and authority, and that's why they chose that role. And they also get to discipline other people, so they dish out punishment on the other person. And like I said, where they like to shit on the other person or get the other person to lick their ass, and they're like, yeah, they don't even enjoy having their ass licked. But they're like, yeah, that's right, the person's licking my ass, it's fucking, yeah. Like, they're not enjoying it sexually, they're enjoying the fact that they're forcing the person to do it. It's crazy. But, what was I saying? I lost my train of thought. Oh, I totally lost what I was saying, but I had something interesting to say. Anyway, so with my thingo, I never really apologised for what I did, because I said, how can I, with my court case, I never fully apologised, because I was like, I don't regret anything. And like, if you have any experience and you learn from that experience, how can I regret it? You know what I mean? Like, and I said, you know, I'm sorry if I caused offence to the family and stuff, but that was about it. I didn't really grovel or apologise and stuff, and so that's also what can annoy a judge. But in my situation, my judge was working for the cops anyway, and like on their payroll. I could just tell, it was so obvious, and I'll explain why. So it didn't really impact my case. Like, the judge's decision was already made before the court case even started. And L. Ron Hubbard says this in the Mission Earth books. He mentioned a little thing about, in the Mission Earth story, someone gets into a legal problem, and then Hubbard said something like, oh yeah, the decision for the court case is already decided before the court case, and when they just go to have the court case, it's just theatre production, and the judge is faking it and stuff, and the judge already knows what decision the judge is going to make. So it's like, the legal system is, you're supposed to, something's happened, you go to the judge, you give all the information, both sides, and the judge decides on what's going to happen. But if the judge has already decided before all the information's been given to them, then when they're listening to the information and asking questions, it's all fake. And it was fake. I saw the judge do it. It was just ridiculous. And I could see the smile on the judge's face, and it was funny. I mean, like, I knew what was going on. It was ridiculous, right? I'll give you an example. The judge was debating if the charge should be graffiti or criminal damage. And I was saying it should be graffiti. And the judge was saying how she thinks it should be criminal damage. And of course the police, the other side, were saying that it should be criminal damage because they wanted to hit me with a bigger charge. And then the court case finished for the day, and then we came back the next day, and the judge sat there and walked into the courtroom, and this is where she was smiling and acting the whole time because it was just ridiculous. But she was like, you know, I was thinking about it, and you might have a point there. And she was looking at me with a smile on my face like, oh, I'm going to trick Andy right now and make him think that he's starting to win the court case and it's going to go to being a graffiti charge. And I knew what she was doing, right? All these psycho games in the legal system, right? And so I saw what she was doing, and then she paused because she wanted me to start saying, yeah, it's graffiti because of blah, 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 blah. And because I knew she was being fake, because of the look on her face and everything, and she was pretending like overnight she had a change of mind. And she said that, literally goes, yeah, I've had a change of mind. And I just knew she was totally lying out of her mouth and being fake. And so then I said, I was like, I groveled up to her and I played the game. I said, Your Honor, you know, I'm not trained legally, you know. I wouldn't dare judge, you know, what you say or something like that. I'm like, look, this is going to have to come, you know, obviously it's going to have to come down to you. You would know better than me. I'm not even going to say anything, right? Because I knew I'd said all the points I had to say yesterday, and that she'd already made up her mind and stuff, and she was pretending like, I was gonna suddenly do a 10-minute rant or a 10-minute talk about the reason why it's supposed to be graffiti, right? But like, I was like, I'm not gonna let her suck me in, and that she's not gonna like. She basically wanted to build me up and get me excited, and then go, nah, it's gonna be criminal damage, right? But I didn't fall for that, because like, and so it was just like. This is how they're sickos and how they get off to this sort of manipulation, because they have these little silly mind games. It would have brought a smile on her face to see someone get excited, and then that person then to suddenly go, oh no, it's criminal damage, and that's what she did, and I knew she was going to do it. So I only spoke a few seconds and basically said, you know, it's all up to you, and you know, I've made my points, and you're more trained than me, and because I knew it was all bullshit as well. Like, I knew it was like, of course it's graffiti, and also it's all just up to the judge to decide, and I knew she was probably following orders from someone else. Anyway, so I knew the decision was already made, so I wasn't going to make a point. I knew she was trying to suck me in. It was actually quite a funny moment during the court case. It was basically towards the end of it, and it was just like, what the hell. But she started saying what the sentence was, and then she goes, and she basically goes, nah, it's criminal damage. And I can tell she did that fast, in a way to try and, she thought she got me excited, like, oh, maybe Andy's winning it and he's going to get the graffiti charge. And then it's like, nah, criminal damage. And so, like, of course, when she said it, like, she didn't say to me, yeah, okay, all right, Andy, but you know what? I've been looking at it, and it appears, I think it's more appropriate that it is criminal damage in this situation. She didn't do it that way. She did it in a way where she suddenly said, it's criminal damage I'm giving you, but she said it in a fast shooting way to try and shock me, to try and upset me, and it's just ridiculous. Anyway, so, well, that was the sentencing, but she basically upheld, the end result was that she basically upheld what the other judge said, because that was what her orders were. It was just basically to make the same sentence, basically, even though apparently she wasn't even supposed to have seen what the other judge had made, according to the rules or something like that. But this is where it's like, it's shocking when you get in that courtroom, because the judge is just king. The judge can do anything with the courtroom, even though there's these rules and laws and stuff. The judge can just say to that person in the audience, to the security guards, take that person out of the courtroom, and the person can just get taken out. They're just like, you can sort of get an idea when you see Judge Judy, how she just like yells at them, and she just has ultimate power and stuff. But Judge Judy's more reasonable, but these other judges, when they're not being filmed and stuff, they can get away with just dodgy stuff. And anyway, so that was the end result of the appeal, that it was just a waste of time completely, and that the judge upheld the previous decision. And I don't believe she cared at all about the graffiti crime I did. I don't think she was offended. I think she probably found it a bit funny, to be honest, because she deals with more serious cases, and she probably thought it was stupid. But she was receiving orders from someone, and I think it was totally the police. She was like on their payroll, and I think they would have said something like, you know, maintain the previous sentence, and that's all she had to do. So she didn't have to think about anything. She barely read the submissions that I put into the courtroom, so I had like a proper written, like 2-page explanation for why I did it and stuff. And this is where she was trying to control the court case, because Oh, this is where I've got to explain how the legal system works. So you've got the police side and then the side of the person defending themselves. But this can be, it can not involve the police. It could be, let's say you got a Chinese shop and a pizza shop and they're fighting. So you got one side the Chinese shop, one side the pizza shop. And they're going to the judge and they're saying their arguments as to what's occurred, right? And the judge has got to make a decision. Well, what you can do is that, this is where the judge has a lot of power. The judge can control the conversation that the three of you are having. Do you see what I mean? The judge can say, oh no, that's not appropriate evidence to enter into the courtroom. Or that's irrelevant evidence. Or, no, that person was a drug addict or something, so that person can't be used as a witness. The judge has a lot of power in this. And this is how you can tinker with the court case to pull out the result you want, right? So in a normal situation where it's not a corrupted court case, right, and it's just both sides, one side says their point of view with the client and the lawyer, and the other side says their point of view with the client and the lawyer, the judge listens to it, has a balanced conversation, finds out all the information and says, you know what, I think you owe that person $500 for the car that you smashed, or something like that. That's very reasonable, right? Now, in my situation, and this happens a lot, I'm sure, is that when the judge has been corrupted, things get a little bit funky, right? Because the judge, the court case is being recorded and people are watching and stuff. The judge wants to control the conversation so that it appears that she's made the correct decision. Do you see what I mean? So it appears that he or she has made the right decision. So let's say a guy's, let's use a rainbow flag example. Well, I mean, I could use my example basically, right? Now, the judge has received her orders before the court case that she's to uphold the decision. And they're secretly, I don't know how the orders are communicated. Maybe she just, when she goes for a morning coffee or whatever, she occasionally bumps into this friend that's sitting there in the coffee house or whatever. And the friend's the representative of the police, but he's not in uniform or anything. And he says to her, oh, okay, so you've got the Jones case this week. And yeah, we want you to uphold the decision of the magistrate court for that case. And then the other one is a Nixon, I don't know, you got the Jimmy case. And he says, with the Jimmy case, the charges have to be blah, blah, blah. And that's it. And that's all they say. It's a really short conversation. It's not anywhere that can be recorded. And that's how it occurs. And then the judge goes into those court cases and then she makes those decisions, but she's been influenced from the meeting that she had the week before the case. Anyway, so I'm suggesting that happened with my case, something like that. So anyway, so she's going into the court case from the start, knowing that she has to make this court case look like it's appropriate that she's upholding the previous sentence. So from the start, she was giving me a hard time. And as soon as it started, what she did was they know all these little tactics. You've got the two tables, right? And the lawyers go up to the two tables, but when you don't have a lawyer, you walk up to the table, right? And then you talk to the judge. But what she did was that she said, when she walked into the room and we stood up and the court case started, she said to me, she goes, you stay there, and she made me sit in the front row and not go up to the table. Now, that's probably against the law, because it's like, hold on a second, you can't just make the person sit in the audience when they're freaking well supposed to be doing the thingo. It's just completely inappropriate. But she did that to me to throw me off and to confuse me, right? because she knew that I was self-represented and, I don't know the legal system. So she knew that I'll be sitting there like, why the hell am I in the audience? This is confusing. If I walk up to the front, am I allowed to walk up to the front? Blah, blah, blah. And she would have enjoyed that when she did that. But it was a way to confuse me. And it was right. It did put me on the back foot at the start of the court case. Because you remember, when the court case is a battle, you're battling and you're having a big conversation and a debate to come to a conclusion. So it's a good way to throw off the person, right? And so she did that to throw me off. And then like she basically spoke to the police, right? The police lawyers. Because at this stage, you're not even dealing with the police anymore. It's just police lawyers. This is why the police are such a drain on the system, because you don't want to know how much they pay to lawyers and stuff. Like I mentioned the dodgy stuff with police spies and stuff. I mean, you just don't want to know how much money they cost and how little result they get. But yeah, they've got a bunch of lawyers, and it's just the justice system. It's government funded, because it'll just be like, they'll be like, we don't have enough money to fund. Like for example, they said we don't have enough money to fund the JobKeeper, which was to businesses that were closed down because of the COVID lockdowns. And it's like, why is there not enough money for them? But there's always enough money for the extremely expensive legal system and all the government lawyers and stuff. Because when they go into these court cases, I think they get some good quality lawyers, and they don't just get one of them, they can get a whole bunch of them. It's just anything government funded is just, oh my God. I mean, I'm just thinking if I was a dictator and because I'm into economics and spending and stuff, and I was looking over the budget, I'll just be like, oh, this is horrendous, the wastage, the expenses and stuff. I would so dramatically cut all these expenses and then would only have to tax people a little bit. You know what I mean? Because I'm nice and stuff. But man, whoever's in charge of our budgets and stuff, they allow the most ridiculous government wastage. It's just outrageous. Like you'll have a primary school and they'll have their lights on in the car park all night. And it's like, you don't need to have a light on in a car park at a primary school at 3 a.m. And you don't need to have so many street lights along. Some streets you can go along and forget to put your headlights on, and you don't even realize it because it's so lit up so well at night. And it's like, aren't we supposed to having some big greenie movement that's supposed to be saving electricity costs and stuff? Like this is why I know the green movement's fake. Trust me, it's all fake. It's about control. If they really wanted to cut the electricity usage, they would have every second street light on. You know what I mean? They wouldn't have a light on in a school playground at 3 a.m. It's just not necessary, Anyway, the wastage is crazy, but the judge started off in a back foot, and she also spoke aggressively to me, which scared me. So what happens is when someone's scared, they're not as good at debating, and they're not as good at thinking as well, because they're rattly and they're sort of shocked, right? So a fair judge would sit down and be like, hey, blah, 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 let me hear blah, 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 and be nice and hear the whole story and then hear the other side and blah, 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 blah. But if the judge was trying to pervert the system, the judge would be like, shut up you, blah, 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 intentionally trying to scare the person, so that then they're on the back foot, right? And then they can't perform as well. And so if it happened to me because I was self-represented, but if I had paid a lawyer, the judge would have done the same thing. The judge would have ignored them, would have intentionally tried to scare them so that they stutter and they don't do as good a performance. These are the sorts of conversational tactics they do so that they can control the courtroom and bring about the result they want, right? And it's weird because in this situation, the judge is a person that makes the result. But the problem is that if people are listening and stuff like that, the judge doesn't want to make it obvious that the judge has already made up the decision. So the judge doesn't want to sit down and say, okay, court start. Okay, cool, court over, I've made my decision. It's like, hold on a second, that was the dodgiest court case ever. So the judge has to put on an act to justify their sentencing, right? The decision that they've made. So just part of that was, and she probably was having fun with it, was to scare me by saying, you can't come to the desk. at the start, which confused me, because then I ended up coming to the desk and I remember thinking, is she going to yell at me because I'm at the desk now? Because they asked me a question, I had to walk up, and I was like, this is just confusing. And that's what she wanted to do. It's a classic sociopathic tactic of confusion and stuff, and using fear. It's because they're trying to control the person. And what she wanted to do, I could tell, was to scare me out of being involved in the conversation. And actually what was kind of cool at the end of it, when she was sort of smiling at me and stuff, is she was actually impressed with my job at self-representation, because she knew she was giving me a hard time and giving me extra tactics, doing these dodgy tactics, but I still managed to sort of come over them and put forward my argument. And she even complimented me and said something like, yeah, you did a good job with your argument. And she had some other things she said, but she goes, you're a smart guy. Like, she, the usual tactics that she would use on people didn't quite work with me, and you can tell she was kind of impressed. She knew that if I wanted to become a lawyer or even a judge, I could totally do it, because I could pick up on all the tactics and everything that was going on. Basically, my IQ is high enough to be able to do that, those shifty things. I wouldn't do the shifty things, but she knows that I could become a lawyer, right? Which I could. Well, actually not now, because you're not allowed to have any criminal record if you become a lawyer. But anyways, but she, yeah, she's literally, you can listen to the court case. I mean, she literally said, she goes, no, he's a smart guy, because something happened further on down the track where some statement made, or maybe he didn't know because he was dumb or something like that, and the judge was like, no, he's a smart guy. I know he's smart. He wouldn't have done that. Like, and anyway, and then, yeah, she complimented me. She goes, yeah, you put forth a good thing, because even though she was trying to control the situation, you know, I put all this effort into the appeal, and I was like, I'm not going to let this freaking bitch judge not let me at least say my point of view or try and control the conversation at all. So I did it in a way that, like, I spoke a little bit over her, and I got my point across, even though I could tell she didn't want me to speak at that moment and get my point across. But I did it in a way that wasn't going to really offend her, because I didn't want to annoy her, right? Because then she'll definitely give a bad sentence. But I tried to tiptoe around her, and then, like I said, I did a little bit of the groveling by giving a compliment and stuff. And so I did a kind of okay performance. But yeah, but it was a great experience. Like, talk about practicing public speaking and stuff and getting into stressful situations. Nothing beats life experience. This is why I honestly recommend people to get in trouble with the law once in their life, because seriously, it's a learning experience, and you really learn and improve in life by playing the game of life, not just being a spectator and listening to other people's experiences or avoiding experiences. The whole thing is that you've got to get in there and experience it yourself, and you get case gain, which is a Scientology word. Because that's why I notice with Scientologists a lot of the time, they just do Scientology stuff in order to improve themselves, and it's like, no, live your life, play the game, get into real life experiences and go on an adventure and a journey and meet these people and do all this sort of stuff. That's where you really advance. You advance doing that much more than doing some mental exercises, you see? Because in Scientology there's TRs. I'm just speaking as if people aren't Scientologists, because this video doesn't even really relate to Scientology, but there's TRs, which is a communication exercise drills. And you can do your TRs over and over again and practice them and practice them and practice them, and you'll get better at communication, but nothing beats getting into a real life, difficult situation, challenging situation in real life, like what I got into. That really improves your TRs. That nothing can beat that. Because after this experience and everything, my TRs are just much better, and my case gain's much better, and all that sort of stuff, because it's life experience. You've got to live your life. That's what will improve you, not just practicing communication exercises. I imagine the equivalent is like someone who's practicing boxing, and they're always in a studio punching the boxing bag, and they're never going to become as good a fighter as someone who's on the street literally fighting people in real life and getting into dangerous situations continually. That guy's going to become a killer fighter. You know what I mean? Because the other dude's just in this little protective gym, and it's just not the real situation. Anyway, so I got a lot of personal enhancement from this experience, because it's challenging talking to a judge. You know, and it's public speaking, you got people then, and there's people from the media and stuff, and it's a challenging situation, but you get benefit from it. Anyway, so the court case started out with the judge making me sit back, and that threw me off. That totally put me on the back foot. And I think I had my friend there, and I don't know what the friend did, but it wasn't even that bad, and the judge just had a go at the friend. So the judge instantly came out in the discussion, which is a court case, and instantly just came out aggressive, just off the bat. You can't sit there, blah, blah, blah. And that was when I worked out within the first 10 minutes that, oh, this is looking really bad. Because what happened is that when I decided to be my own lawyer, it's because I watched a previous court case and the judge came out and the guy was being his own lawyer. He was self-representing, and the judge was nice, and he spoke to the person, and he basically just was nice and reasonable and assisted the guy, and he goes, and they were deciding on if the person was guilty or not, and the judge basically said to the guy, look, I've looked at the evidence. So even before the court case started, the judge was like, I looked at the evidence, and the judge didn't directly say this, but the judge was just like basically saying, you know, you're not in the wrong. You don't even have to, I know you're being self-represented, but you don't even have to put in much of an effort because this guy has no case, right? And unless something changes now, I mean, you've won the case. And that's basically what he sort of said, but he didn't directly say that. And so then he was just really nice and reasonable, and the guy presented his arguments, and the other guy presented his arguments, and then he came to the result and just said, yeah, you know, this guy isn't guilty of what he's been accused of, and, you know, that's the end of the court case. But the judge was really reasonable and wasn't like a sociopath and wasn't, you know, hell-bent on trying to... Anyway, so when I went to my one, I thought, oh yeah, that makes sense. So you can do this sort of stuff, like you can self-represent and stuff. But when your judge has been intentionally corrupted, you can't do this sort of stuff, because the judge isn't going to assist you with your self-representation. If anything, a judge is going to try and make you look like an idiot, so then when they give their sentence, it appears as if they've given the correct sentence. So anyway, so that's what the judge did. The judge tried to throw me off and to scare me into being quiet. And when I gave up, when I wanted to hand to her the explanation for why I did it, like a letter, she even was trying to stop me from submitting that to the courtroom because she didn't want any arguments that would assist, that would make her look like she made a bad decision. Do you see what I mean? So when we were talking, I was like, oh, do I hand, you know, this thing up there? She was like, oh, later. And then she kept on avoiding it. And you know how you can tell when someone's trying to avoid it. And then eventually was like, yeah, no, but yeah. And I kept on seeing it, you know what I mean? I kept on making it happen. I kept on trying to force it onto her. And then eventually it got submitted into her. And of course, she barely read it. But it was just so obvious she was trying to control the conversation so that it appeared as if she'd made the right decision. Okay, so these are the sorts of shifty things that can happen, because I've looked up, this is why I'm so happy I had this experience, because I looked up a court case, and the court case was about it was about a Holocaust denier, or Holocaust revisionist called, I think it was the David Irving case. And it was David Irving versus the chick. And in that case, I remember reading up on Wikipedia, and I remember reading the judge's comments throughout the court case, and I remember reading it going, oh, this is exactly the same thing that my judge did, where the judge is clearly not doing a balanced discussion, not giving the David Irving guy a fair chance and cutting his communications and saying, oh, you can't submit this thing. And the judge is, I read it and I was just like, that judge has already made a decision as to where this court case is going, and the judge is controlling the conversation so that David, all this point, like David can't make a proper argument. And if a judge is listening to this, they totally know exactly what I'm talking about. They know exactly what they can do during the court case. So this is what the legal system works. If the cops are being fair, if the other lawyers, if your lawyers and lawyers on the defense side are being fair, and if the judge is being fair, and if there's a jury, if the jury is being fair, right? But if people are being dodgy and corrupting it, then it just doesn't come to a fair result. Like, you've got to have honest, nice people involved. Otherwise, you can't have sociopaths in there, or you can't have people working for secret groups in there, because they can corrupt the system. It's what I'm trying to say is the court cases, it can very easily become a kangaroo court, right? Did you know how they use the example, lefties use the example of the evil white Americans and how they pick on the blacks, and when the black person has a court case for a murder, he gets accused of a murder he didn't do, and he gets an unfair court case, and then they send him to jail, and the guy's innocent, and it's all unfair, and the judges corrupt the system and stuff like that. When you hear about those stories, I guess maybe it's the To Kill a Mockingbird idea, like from that book that they make us read at school, which is just propaganda. Honestly, it's racial propaganda. And it's funny because we barely got black people in Australia, but we've got Aboriginals, so I guess that's why they made us read it here at school, because it's like, we don't have African Americans, but we've got Aboriginals, and it must be the same thing. It has the same effect. It's all about making white people seem bad. But they're basically saying that, hey, we've got this is the idea they're getting across. Hey, we've got this good legal system and it works and it's good, but when a black person comes on, it suddenly gets corrupted and it's all bad. And it's like no, it's not just suddenly bad when they're dealing with the black person. It's like, no, the system in general is corrupt and dirty. You're putting across the wrong idea. The whole thing is corrupt and dirty. It's not that the legal system in 1930s America was corrupt and dirty for blacks and picking on them, but it was a good legal system. It's like, no. The whole system's corrupt and dirty, you know? And I'm assuming it was much less corrupt back then, but now it's just way more corrupt and dirty. And this is just the To Kill a Mockingbird idea, where a black gets picked on. That just happens time and time again with court cases. Like, there was a court case for with the dingo got my baby. You know, a dingo got my baby, or whatever. I probably don't have to put the I probably don't have to put the accent on. I can say, a dingo ate my baby, or something like that. But basically, that was all bullshit, right? Because she got accused of killing her freaking baby, or I can't remember. What was the story? She got accused of murdering her own baby and went to jail and shit for years, and had to fight the court case for years, right? And it was like the To Kill a Mockingbird thing. She was totally innocent, right? Like, she didn't do it. Like, I didn't even know that's the story of To Kill a Mockingbird. It was one of those ones they made us read at school, and I think I half read it, and it's just like, it's just such a terrible story, right? It's just a boring story. And you don't know what the words mean, and you're not there in the history of, it just goes all over your head, and you just get the message that the propagandists want, which is basically that, like, whites are bad at picking on blacks, so don't pick on blacks, and, you know, open your borders and flood the place with foreigners. That's basically the idea they want to get across. Honestly, that's why they make kids read it at school, To Kill a Mockingbird. And now there's even more way more propaganda than when I was at school. It's gone to an insane level. They're putting propaganda in maths equations. So they'll be like, we've got two special, what's 2% carbon tax of like 10% of this equation? And like literally they'll put all this greeny shit and all this propaganda and stuff. They even get in English, this is really funny, I'm going off topic, but in English classes, I'm not kidding, they'll even have an essay question that's like, some right-winger posted something inappropriate. Should he go to jail for posting this inappropriate thing on Facebook? And it's like, whoa, they're getting the kids to write essays on that topic. It's like, wow, they're getting us ready to lock up people that are posting stuff online that they don't like. And then the students, even if the students know it's bullshit, the students just, apparently you get better marks if you say yes, they should be locked up. Like if you go along with what the teacher thinks or whatever, you can get a better mark, and it's bullshit. But that, I'm not making that essay question up. That's literally an essay question. And you can see it if you look around the world, they are trying to lock up and the police are just being used for political reasons. They're trying to get rid of people who are like anti-COVID and stuff. Anyway, so this dingo baby chick, right, they just stitched her up. She was innocent. She did not kill her baby. Honestly, a dingo ate her baby. Honestly, right? That's what the evidence indicated. There was no evidence that she killed her or anything. But for whatever reason, I think it was political, because guess who the chick was? She was the wife of a pastor of a church or something. And what is the world socialist agenda? Right? This New World Order fucking crap, the communist agenda for the communist world government which we have. Their agenda is to get rid of religions, and that's why they've been exposing the pedophile police. That's why they've been exposing the pedophile priests, because they're trying to stop people from being religious, because they don't want competition for people's minds. They want to be the only people who control, and they want people to only go to the government for their science and for their information and stuff, and they don't like religions because it's competition. That's also why Scientology gets attacked, because Scientologists follow the church and not the government, and they don't like that. They want people following the government. So I actually honestly reckon that they saw that there was this hot news item where this baby got eaten by a dingo, right? They looked at it and they saw that it was a pastor of a church and his wife, and they thought, oh, this would be a perfect case to make out a church leader to be evil, and this will work with this will be a good social engineering operation. Yeah, we're going to stitch her up. We're going to accuse her. I'm not making this up. We're going to accuse her of murdering the dingo, right? Murdering the baby. And they did that. They literally planted fake evidence, and the court case was all bullshit from start to end. And she got found guilty and went to jail, and then she appealed it, and they wouldn't let her appeal the decision. They kept her in jail, and then somehow she kept on fighting it, and finally she got let free. And it was like, yeah, she was innocent all along. She never killed the baby. Okay, but the government came after her and just accused her of it. And so that's why when I watch things on the news and someone gets accused of something, I'm just like, you never look at things the same again, because you're like, oh, well, the legal system can be so corrupted and stuff, and they could just be making up that the person did that. You know, it's just outrageous, right? Because you look at what this woman went through, and it's like she had a family and stuff, you know, with kids and that, and she had to go to jail, and it was just like, it's so unfair. And the way the media presented it, apparently when she was walking in and out of the courtroom, they would choose photos of her where she looked like, I don't know, where she was picking her nose or where she had a bad look on her face, intentionally to try and change the public opinion. Like, they brainwashed the public and everyone into thinking she was some evil baby killer. And that's where you know the media is so freaking evil, and how they push these agendas, and you're just like, whoa, that's crazy. The dingo ate my baby chick. She was innocent, and she went through all that abuse, and then at the end of it, after all that, she got some payout from the government, but there's no way it made up for it. Like, honestly, it probably just covered her legal costs, But it's like, whoa, you went to jail, you got all that abuse and everything. Like, you got accused of killing your baby and all this sort of stuff. And it's like, oh my, it's just so, you know, when you see the evil of that whole dingo got the baby thing, you're just like, wow. Like, someone wanted to accuse her of killing a baby, and they were doing it for political reasons. And I reckon they were trying to trash religion or something. And anyway, because, you know, you look at how religion's died off a lot in the past 50 years, and it's like, that happened for a reason, you know. And you look at all these pedophile priests that have gotten into trouble, like Cardinal Pell. They pumped Cardinal Pell across the media like you wouldn't believe. It was like we'd landed a man on the moon or something. It was like he got so much news coverage, and it's because they don't want people going to private Catholic schools, and they don't want people being Catholic and following other things. They want people to just be communists, basically, and lefties and atheists, because they follow the government. They think they're following the science, but it's controlled science, it's fake science. Anyway, so if you study that dingo baby case, you can see how people were corrupting the whole case in order to achieve a certain result, and it's not fair. And anyway, so with my situation, the judge was trying to cut across and stuff things up, so the result came out the way she wanted it to be. So it appeared, if somebody just casually listened in to the recording of the court case, they would go, oh yeah, no, the judge made a right decision. You know what I mean? So, but I made that difficult for her, to be honest, because I put forth some good arguments, so it sort of challenged her. But that's a tactic that they use, where they scare the person, and they do it to lawyers as well. You have to understand this as well. So you hire a lawyer, it doesn't mean you've got some perfect public speaker, some person who could handle a sociopathic, scary judge. That lawyer can still get intimidated and scared by the judge, right? So one of the things I would look for in a lawyer is I would look for severe strength and good public speaking ability and really no fear at all. So then if they ever do get a judge that's scary, they don't get shot back onto the back foot and they hold their ground in the conversation. Because, you know, these court cases are just like a boxing match, but like an intelligent debate version, and you know, you need to pull your big guns into it, and it's a battle. Another thing that might happen if you hire another lawyer as well is that the lawyer might be wanting to protect their career. So you want to go into this court case battle and you're like, yeah, do this, lawyer, do that, blah, blah, blah. But the lawyer might be like, oh, you know, what if I get this judge in the future? I don't want to offend them. And the lawyer's like, oh, I don't want to do anything that might just cause a bit of a problem or something like that, or something that might go into the media or something like that. So the lawyer won't necessarily put up a big fight because the lawyer is trying to protect their career. And they tend to be lawyers. They tend to be more nerdy, cowardy type personalities. Like, seriously. So, well, not all of them. Some of them are these sociopaths that are like different. They're like crazy. They're like more passive aggressive. But they basically, a lawyer can get intimidated by the judge the same way the judge was trying to, and then did intimidate me in my court case, right? So that can happen to a lawyer. So don't think that just because you hired a lawyer, the judge can't intimidate a lawyer and try and control what the lawyer thinks and says. Because in the next court case that I had, when I had a hired lawyer, I saw how the judge, another judge, the higher one, did the same thing that the other judge did. It wasn't, to me, it wasn't as outrageous, but it was the same sort of thing, whereas they'd already made their decision and they were trying to intimidate my lawyer. And my lawyer got rattled by it because I didn't buy like a super expensive lawyer or something like that. Because the really good ones who have these good abilities, they cost heaps. This is why, to defend yourself, to get justice, you have to spend so much money. Anyway, so in my appeal at the county court, so it was about 10 minutes in when I could see how the judge was treating me and stuff. And what the judge did to start it off, the judge started going, so how much did the water cost? Because after I did the graffiti, they called the fire brigade in to hose it. And it's like, this is how ridiculous they are. This is how desperate they were to, I don't know, protect this site because it was being used as a propaganda piece. Like, they wanted to hose the paint off the grass. So they called the fire brigade, and it's like, the fire brigade should have better things to do. In fact, they should have said, no, we're not going out there. But anyway, they called them because it was such a, high profile thing. And the fire brigade hosed the paint and just spread it around, and it didn't like really remove it. So anyway, the judge goes, so how long was the fire brigade for, and how long were the hoses running for, and how much does the water cost per thingo? So she instantly was trying to make the money I had to pay, which is called the restitution. It's not a fine, it's a restitution paying for the grass. She was trying to make that bill high because she was trying to make me pay for the water that the fire brigades used. So she came out the bat straight away, like, in trying to intimidate me by trying to make me sit at the front, not at the I think it's called the bar, not at the desk. And then she started saying, so how much was the water? And then she goes, and how much is each labour for each fireman? And she was just like, it was just like she was totally, she just, and she also didn't really acknowledge my existence. She sort of treated me like she was ignoring me, like really rude and stuff. And she knew what she was doing. She was trying to make the result as bad as possible. But anyway, I ended up negotiating with the cost of the thingo, and I ended up getting the fire brigade cost all cut, and the other costs I really pushed them on. I got them the costs cut down massively. And so it went from, originally it started at 22. In the first round of court cases at the lower court, it got taken down to like 19,500. And then when I was representing myself, I did more negotiations, and because it was just ridiculous, the original one with 22,000. It was like, I didn't do 22,000 worth of damage. I mean, it's just a joke. I did like $200 worth of damage, whatever. You just cover it up with freaking green paint. It was a complete joke. I didn't know they could do this sort of dodgy shit. I didn't know they could corrupt. I thought the legal system was much fairer than what it was. I thought it was more reasonable and fair. I didn't know they could just come in and say, yeah, $22,000 for paint that you did on the grass. Like, it's just a joke. Right. So I got it down to actually 13,500, which is pretty cool. And that was the only thing I won out of the court case. The rest, the judge kept completely the same as the previous court. And I think that's actually because the sentencing, you got I think the restitution, you got the sentencing, and they're separate things. And she wasn't too fussed, I think, about the restitution. I think that whoever gave her the orders for the court cases that were coming up for me, they were like, you have to uphold the sentencing of the magistrate's court. And so this little addition thing of the actual cost of the repairs was like, it wasn't part of her orders. So she was just like, whatever, like if it's 20,000 or 13,000, it doesn't really matter. Like, my job was to make sure he got the same sentence. You see what I mean? So that's why I think she was lenient on the cost of the grass or something like that. And so that was cool that I got that lowered. I still think it was unfair. And I even took photos. I even recreated it in my dad's backyard. I went out and put a line of paint on grass and then painted over and took some photos and submitted them in the court case. So I put a lot of effort into this because I was showing to her like the effect that paint has on grass and how their arguments were wrong and stuff and how they shouldn't have replaced the grass and everything. But her opinion was just like, I was going to have to pay for the grass replacement because the whole argument was that it was criminal damage, and she was ordered to go with criminal damage as the judge. So she was never going to stop that the grass was damaged. My argument was that I never damaged the grass, right? But she was always going to say no, and she was like, then why they replace it or whatever? And she controlled the conversation. Like, she wouldn't let it go down the right path. But one of the things I remember I asked the person who was the groundskeeper, I said, you're aware that the AFL footy, they paint over white lines on the oval with green paint. When they change the positions of the thingos on the fields and stuff, they paint over. And he goes, no, I wasn't aware of that. And I'm like, you are 100% aware of that, because this dude was in charge of painting out the cricket lines on the oval and all this sort of stuff, and the soccer pitch and that. And he 100% knows the technique of painting over green paint over white lines to achieve a certain result. But he wasn't going to say, yeah, I intentionally replaced the grass to make money and because I was told to stuff you over. He's not going to say that. So he just goes, no, I wasn't aware that the AFL did that. And it's just like, I knew for sure he was lying. Anyway, another thing I'll mention as well, this is off topic, but when I did make the media when it first happened, and throughout it all, the media, this is where they were so dodgy. This is why I don't know if this video is ever going to end. There's so much to this. But this is why I don't trust any of the mainstream media, because I saw how they reported on my own incident and they got the facts wrong. They got my age wrong. They got... one thing they got intentionally wrong was the charges I was giving. Throughout the court cases, right, each time I went into court, they would do a little news story on it. And they would say, Andy has been charged with criminal damage, graffiti, something else, and lewd behaviour. And I remember when I first heard them say lewd behaviour, I was like, what the hell are they talking about, lewd behaviour? What, do they think I ran around naked and streaked or something like that? What the hell are they talking about, lewd behaviour, right? And then I thought, when I saw on the first news report, I thought, someone just made a mistake. But then when I went to the court case again, and clearly you could hear throughout the court case the charges that were being spoken about. There was never any mention ever of lewd behaviour, right? But when they wrote it up to the media, they added in lewd behaviour, right? So they just made it up, and they knew they were lying. And this is where I'm like, the media is a disgusting propaganda piece, because they put lies in there and they know they're lying. They don't just, not only do they make mistakes, but they intentionally make mistakes. And in the situation, with the way I was featured in the media, they were basically saying, look at this disgusting white male, look at this right winger, look at this guy that's anti our feminism movement, look how bad he is, he's been charged with blah 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 and lewd behaviour, right? They had to do each piece where I was being reported by them, I had to come across as being as dirty and bad as possible. So they did snap one photo, I think it was rubbing our nose or something like that, out the front of the courthouse. And they snapped another bad photo, and they try and make the news report appear as if the person is really bad and stuff. And they literally just added in the lewd behaviour thing. And then it was only until the last court case where I think the final sentence was given, and I think then they did the report and it said the actual charges, and they didn't mention the lewd behaviour. And I was like, oh my God, but all the way along you kept on adding this lewd behaviour thing and it was never part of it. So that's where I know that the media is fully shifty, okay? The media is full of these runty, disgusting 1-1. And if you don't know what 1-1 means, it's a Scientology word that sort of means passive-aggressive. These shifty, manipulative fucks, that's the people who write these media stories, and they literally have an order that they're like, okay, you're a journalist and you're writing a story on this court case with this anti-feminist dude, make it seem as dirty as possible. And the guy's like, yeah, and they twist the facts and stuff. And that's where I know that the media they're really the third party in society. And third party is a Scientology word. It means that they're the secret group that's causing problems amongst everyone. And that's the media. The media is causing Black Lives Matter riots. The media is causing racial fights. The media is causing turmoil in society, because they're putting out false information and they're manipulating things, and they're making us all fight amongst each other. They're dividing and conquering us, if you know what I mean. That the media are doing that, and I'm telling you, I've looked into it. There's almost nothing more evil than the media. The media is the most disgusting thing ever, and we are in the situation we are as a world at the moment, with divorced families and drug problems and all these things, it's honestly because of the media. The media is a huge thing. And the bankers, who I think control everything, they control the socialist world government, and it's key that they got control of the media, right? And you look back into when things were much better in the 1800s, they didn't have radios and TVs and stuff to brainwash people, right? But it was as TVs came out and got more and more popular, society got more and more brainwashed by the media. Like they're just, I'm telling you, the media is the most disgusting thing ever. And that's why when I saw them, how they twisted the things in my court case and added this lewd behavior charge when it was never there, I was like, you guys are runts. You guys know exactly what you're doing. You're disgusting. And I remember meeting this comedian dude named Toby Halligan. He's just this disgusting guy. He's such a degenerate. And he worked for this disgusting Channel 10 propaganda news show called The Project. And they're just full of globalist left-wing propaganda from start to end. And he was like a writer or a journalist for them. And when I met him, I was like, oh, you are just a disgusting person. And you're the type of people that they hire and they put in the media. And you guys just put out propaganda. And you don't care about the truth and facts and doing a fair news reporting service. No, you are just there to manipulate society and to think the way you want them to think. And it's just disgusting. I'm just the sort of person that I don't like lies. You know what I mean? I'm really for just honesty and straight facts. And these people are the opposite. They are totally into lies. And their reporting was just, it's just disgraceful, adding in those fake charges and stuff. Another time when I was in the news is they cut to the news person who was at the site where I'd done the graffiti, and they'd been changing over from the football to the cricket season, and they change over pieces of grass in the middle where the cricket pitch is. So they're basically doing renovations during that changeover season time, and they've got huge piles of dirt while they're doing that, because it's a big park. And this was months after they'd replaced the grass, and it was probably a year after or whatever, and I was in the media for one of my court cases. And they cut to the news person who was at the site of where the graffiti was. And the news person was standing not where I actually did the graffiti, but somewhere in that park where these big piles of soil was, right? And it gave the impression that the news reporter was reporting from the park and the site where they were fixing up the damage that I did. You know what I mean? Because they were talking about how I did the they barely even referred it to graffiti. This is where they twisted it all. They referred it to as vandalism or something like that. They made out that I'd just they almost made out as if I'd blown up the park or something like that. And then when they were talking about it initially, and then when they cut to you cut to the news anchor person that's standing there and they're next to these piles of grass, you just think, wow, what the hell did this crazy dude do? Like, there's piles of grass there and he's being asked to pay $19,000 in damage to the thingo. You're like, wow, he must have caused damage to the park. And it's like, that's not the case. That those piles of soil were there because they were changing over the soccer pitches. You know what I mean? And so for the season change thing. But that's where you watch the news and you're casually just watching it. You finish work and you're casually watching the news and you see this story and you're like, oh yeah, and you think that news reporter is standing behind the piles of damage that I'd caused or whatever, or the amount of soil that needed to be put in to replace the grass. And it's just a head fuck. That's why when you watch the news, there's a lot of propaganda in it, and they do stuff like that. They'll send the reporter to stand behind the piles of grass to confuse you. And stuff that they do as well in the media is that they sometimes they'll send the person to the site, but they're not really sent to the site. But they're making the viewer think that they're actually at that location, but they're actually at a green screen. They're not even at the location. And so they're shifty, basically. Okay, you cannot trust the news, and they manipulate you. And it's little subtle things like that. Like you're watching the story and you see the piles of soil and you think, oh yeah, he must have really caused damage. But if you knew the real story, it's that it was just paint on grass, right? You'd be like, why the hell is he getting ordered to pay $20,000? That's outrageous, right? So it's just, that's what I'm saying. Like, that's why I don't trust the mainstream media, because I know from my personal experience they are so shifty. It's just they're manipulative. They're there to propagandize you, and if you don't know the inside details of that report that they're doing, you can't see through the bullshit, so you can get tricked by it. Anyway, that was just outrageous. So there's another thing as well I want to mention before I finish this video, because I've still got heaps more to say. I still haven't finished up the whole appeal thing. There's still more to it. But I'll finish up this video with this. The way the police work is that they want to get good news reports, right? Because so much crime goes on that they can't catch all of the crimes, but they cherry pick what they're going to catch, and they make sure that it gets reported in the media. And then society sees that in the news and thinks, number one, I shouldn't break the law, and because I'll get caught, and number two, the police are doing a good job, and it justifies me paying my taxes to go towards the police. But if you know the real story of it, that the police are just a money-making scam and they don't really stop crime. In fact, they encourage it, because we naturally take out criminals. If you've got a town, right, and you've got a town with no police in the town, and you've got some dude that's raping people or some dude that's stealing, what do you think the men of the town do? We go and we fuck the guy up. Like we kill him, or we go and we take him, send him out of the town or something like that. We naturally, as a society, solve the problem of crime. We don't need a specific big government force with an expensive building that's stealing the taxpayers' money and stuff. We don't need them to make sure people obey. Most people are well behaved, and we take out the person who's causing problems. It's that simple. And that's why a society where they're allowed to have guns is a much better society, and it's actually safer, and there's less crime, because the criminals don't want to break into houses because they're scared of getting shot. You know what I mean? We naturally, when we're left alone and the government doesn't take our guns, we naturally solve the problem of crime, is basically what I'm saying, And but when you have the police come in and say, the police and the justice system, they come in and say, give us your money, your taxpayer money, and we will make sure crime goes away, and we will make sure that criminals stop stealing, and we'll discipline them, and let us do it. It just becomes a scam, and you look at it, and the lawyers cost heaps, the judges cost heaps, the police cost heaps, and at the end of the day, it just ends up becoming a revolving door of crime, and the crime isn't stopped. And then the government says, we're banning guns because they're dangerous, but only we're allowed to have the guns, and the citizens aren't. And then the citizens don't have guns, and then guess what? Crime increases even more, because the criminals go, yes, the police and the system and stuff are kind of looking after us. They barely catch us for what we do, because you just can't have police everywhere to catch us, and it's easy to trick them, and we get away with heaps of stuff. And what's even better is now the citizens don't have any guns, so now I know I can go into those houses and they're not going to shoot me. And guess what? They're actually not even going to beat me up, because guess what? If they beat me up, they get in trouble by the police. This is freaking awesome. Hell yeah. Like, for example, me, if I came across a criminal, right, Do you think I would shoot the criminal? Like, let's say I know it's a really bad criminal. Do you think I would shoot him? Do you think I would beat him up? No, because I don't want to get in trouble with the cops. I don't want to get charged with murder. That's fucking crazy. But if I was in a town with no police and I came across a criminal, I knew he was bad, I would fucking take him out. I would be like, you're evil and we're getting rid of you. You're a cancer in society, right? And I would solve the problem of that criminal, you know? If he broke into my house, I'd put a bullet in his head. You understand? Right? And then that town would be fantastic because we would have no criminals and we wouldn't have to pay an expensive police department, right? But the problem is that people in these modern socialist cities like Melbourne that are controlled by this world socialist government, this secret sort of government that's controlling the world, that's caused all this leftism crap, they've taken our guns and they've also made this big legal system so that if somebody kills a criminal, they can get into some serious trouble. I mean, I even heard that it got to such a ridiculous point is that if that criminal hurt themselves while they were in your house, like, I don't know, some sort of structural problem with your house and the criminal hurt themselves, then they could sue you for having inappropriate floorboards or something like that they slipped on and hurt themselves. And it sounds totally ridiculous, but from my experience with the legal system and getting into trouble for writing a Google comment and losing the case, right? I know I didn't put up much of a fight, but it doesn't matter. As a judge, I'll just look at it and go, this is ridiculous, but I lost it, right? I know that the legal system is an absolute joke, and there's other examples that I can't remember where, you know, like it's disgusting. And when you know that the police is actually making sure that crime stays around, honestly, they're making sure that crime stays around, they're corrupting our natural ability to solve crime in our society and stuff. It's just another government department that's doing the exact opposite of what it's claiming to do, right? Like there's heaps of examples, like for example, the government welfare department in Australia called Centrelink, they're there to try and, you know, give people support while they're looking for a job and to help them get a job. The real truth is they're there to make sure the person doesn't get a job. And it's not there to help the person. They keep the person poor for the rest of their lives. That's the real truth. That's why they make it easy to get Centrelink and stuff. And for people to rort the system because they want people to be on Centrelink so that they're government slaves and that they're poor, and they use those poor masses to vote in socialist things, and it's all a political operation. But time and time again, you look into any government service and it tends to be doing the opposite of what they're claiming to be doing. It just becomes a scam. Anyway, so I want to mention that. So beware that when you're watching the news and you're seeing all these reports of crime and stuff, you're just seeing pro-police propaganda, right? And they're also using a tactic that they're trying to brainwash the public into thinking that they need to obey the law or they'll get in trouble with the police. Do you see what I mean? So even though they know that tons of crime occurs and that actually someone can break the law heaps and get away with it, right? Heaps and get away with it. They know that their job is to make the public think that they'll get caught for that crime they're thinking of committing. So they brainwash people into thinking they need to obey the law. And this is why people obey the COVID rules, right? Because they've been brainwashed their whole life in all this police propaganda. They think that they're going to get in trouble. And they're like, and so they don't know that they can actually get away with a lot of crime. And so they're scared to break the law, basically. But if they actually knew that it's just that you're seeing all these news reports and you're not seeing all the news reports of all the failed court cases where the police didn't get a big result and where the police lost, and also you're not hearing about all the crime stories from the criminals, tons of them. Like, they don't start the evening news. Today, in the nightly news, in Melbourne, 1,670 crimes occurred in the past 24 hours and no one got caught for them and the criminals got away with them. Meanwhile, this court case happened and that court case happened and the person got caught. Oh, you better follow the law because you're going to get caught. And it's like, no, that's not the truth. Like, sorry, I'm not saying you should break the law, but I'm just saying that the mainstream media is police propaganda and they're attempting to control the masses by making the masses think that they'll get busted by the police if they do anything wrong. But the truth is that the person's very unlikely to get busted, right? I know my situation, I got busted, but mine was they called the special police out on me. I got a special investigation and it wasn't the normal local police because it was a whole propaganda thing, my graffiti. So they pulled out the big guns on me, and that's why the police that were involved with me weren't from like the local police station. They were from like the headquarters in Victoria. You know what I mean? Because it was a whole different thing. I had the police spy department onto me and everything. So it was a different thing. But if you have a criminal who steals from the local shops or paints graffiti on the local oval, they get the local police and they're just small fry and they don't have the special technology and the special resources and they can't catch people. And a lot of the time they just pretend like they're trying to catch crimes and they don't even catch the crimes. Like I got a friend who had the footage of the car getting broken into and gave it to the police, and the police didn't even, I don't even think they even bothered accepting the footage, and they didn't even bother investigating it, and they just pretended like they were going to investigate it. And the police are just, crime's rampant, they're not stopping crime, they're encouraging it, and they're making people think like they should obey the law so that more people don't commit crimes. So it's manipulation, and this is the only form of manipulation that I actually might agree with, because I don't like propaganda, but this is the only form of propaganda where I go, you know what, maybe that's right. Maybe it's right that people think they're going to get in trouble with the cops when they break the law because it might stop them from breaking the law, even though they don't know that they're not going to get in trouble and they can easily get away with it. But that might actually help bring about mass obedience from society. So maybe we should do lots of news reports showing people get caught, because then it'll make them think that you get caught if you do anything illegal. But the thing is that no, you're unlikely to get caught if you do anything. If you do something illegal, you're quite unlikely to get caught, because the police just don't have the resources to investigate and follow all these things up. Like, it's just, you'd have to have police and cameras just everywhere in order to catch all the crime that's going on. So to control the masses, they just put out all this propaganda of people getting caught, and then people think, well, I better not do the crime because I'm going to get caught. And the criminals know this. They know that they can't get caught, so the criminal personalities continually break the law, and all the good people who aren't criminals but are thinking of breaking the law because of some, I don't know, they've had some disagreement from their boss. So their boss owes them money, so they go and they steal something. They're thinking of stealing something from their boss, right? And it's like they actually have a reasonable argument. They're not an evil criminal. They're actually getting something from the boss that's actually kind of fair, and it's kind of right that they're actually stealing from the boss, because they're thinking, oh, I better not break the law because this is breaking the law. Oh, I better not steal from my boss, even though it's the right thing to do. I better not steal from my boss. Because of all the police propaganda, they don't steal from the boss. So you stop that person from committing the crimes, but the actual criminal who knows that it's all just bullshit and you can get away with heaps of crime, they continually break the law and it doesn't stop them. So and then also in our society, right, if someone screws someone else over, like this boss example of the boss not paying the person, right? Like, the fact that we've got this wrought police system that's corrupt and justice system, that's corrupting the social society dynamics between people and stuff. And this is just another example of them, the government, interfering in our natural justice system and it causing more problems. See, it's better with a society where somebody can go, well, this boss screwed me over, I'm going to steal his car, right? Like the boss is a prick, he owes the guy thousands of dollars, right? In an ideal world, that dude should be able to just go up to him and steal his car, right? But because we've got a justice system that gets involved, right, that guy's not going to steal the car because he's worried about getting in trouble with the police, right? So then that boss gets away with continually screwing over people, right? So again, I'm just saying the legal system interferes with things and actually makes things worse, and things will be better without it. And sometimes there is the case where someone's been screwed over and they go to a judge and stuff, and actually the system works out okay. But when you look at how much it fails and how much it costs, it's just not worthwhile. That's what I personally think, and that's why I'm a libertarian. So my idea of a society is a far freer society, right? And also one thing I'll say just to finish things off is that because these lawyers, I already mentioned in the last video, but because these lawyers are trained in the whole legal system at the socialist lefty universities, they're brainwashed in all these ideas that are like, you need to have big government, you need to have legal systems controlling things, that you need all this stuff, all these lefty socialist things, you need this whole huge system. The lawyers tend to always side with the system, and when someone's coming into the justice system and they're going to the lawyer for advice, the lawyer is basically one of them. You have to understand that. So even though you're hiring them, unless you're paying them an insane amount of money, they're unlikely to really help you as much as I think they should, and they're always going to side with the idea that no, you need to assist the police and the whole system and everything, and they're basically a lefty, right? They're not libertarians, so be careful of that. You know, so yeah, anyway, that's it for this briefing, and I still have ages to go. I can't believe how long this has been. So anyway, I'll continue with this story, but this is what, I don't know why, but this can go on, because it's just the reason we've got all these problems in the world. A major reason is the fact that our justice system is corrupted, and that's what my experience with the legal system, that's what this is all about. It's all about telling you about the justice system and how messed up it is, and that's why we've got ghettos in America. That's why, you know, we've got so many things wrong. Like, that's why we've got these divorced families, because they changed the legal system. They made it okay for people to have divorces. So then divorces happen, and then the kids got brought up without having a mother and a father there making sure that they don't grow up to be criminals. And because a lot of the time from single parent families, that's where criminals come out of and stuff. So it's just like the legal system is really a key thing when you're looking at the problems in the world. Anyway, I've been your host, Andy, an Ultra Space Cowboy. You've been listening to the Indie Scientology podcast. So remember, do what you want to do. See ya.